Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast where we dive deep into the fascinating world of energy geopolitics and shipping dynamics. I am Shruti, your host, and today we have an expert, Sandesh, joining us. Sandesh, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Shruti. It's great to be here, and always I am excited to discuss the energy and shipping industries today.
Alright then, let's get started with a very fascinating geopolitical question. So, Greenland has been a point of intrigue lately, especially with former President Trump's interest in purchasing it. So, Sandesh, why do you think Greenland holds such strategic importance?
Shruti, Greenland's significance lies in its vast natural resources, and that includes rare earth minerals, specifically lithium and uranium, which are critical for renewable energy technologies. Additionally, controlling Greenland offers strategic advantage in the Arctic, such as access to untapped oil and gas reserves and influence over emerging shipping lanes due to the melting ice. So there are advantages.
Well, that's quite interesting. So, how do you see the geopolitics of Greenland impacting global energy markets? And why has Greenland sparked such controversy?
Well, President Trump's interest in Greenland, it's sparked a controversy for several reasons. It's for both historical and geopolitical. But first, let me tell you, Greenland is not just a large, sparsely populated island. Second is, it holds immense strategic importance. And in the recent times, the Arctic is becoming a focal point for global power competition. Why? Because it has untapped natural resources and there are emerging shipping routes as ice is melting, so world is going to capture on that. And by expressing a desire to purchase a Greenland, Trump effectively highlighted the island's role in this broader geopolitical chessboard. However, the way he approached the matter, framing it as a political and potential transaction, that is deeply problematic. But why is that? Because Greenland is not just a commodity. You cannot just go and buy something like that. It is home to 50,000 people, and then they have a government, they have their unique cultural identity. And when Prime Minister Mute Eged's response, emphasizing that Greenland belongs to its people and it's not for sale, it underscores the sensitivity of such remarks. And by the way, Prime Minister Mute Eged is the Prime Minister of Denmark, and Denmark is neighboring nation of Greenland. So, additionally, I have to say, Denmark, as Greenland's sovereign partner, saw a suggestion as an affront to its authority and oversimplification of complex historical relationship. Greenland, historically, it was a Danish colony until 1953, and it remains tied to Denmark through the Danish crown. And this history makes any discussion of buying Greenland particularly fraught. So from a defense perspective, Trump's statement also added urgency to Denmark's plan to strengthen Greenland's security. So the Arctic is a region of increasing strategic competition with the nations like Russia and China. They are also seeking influence. And Denmark's announced investment in the Greenland's defense capabilities, it potentially amounts to billions. But the important thing is that it signaled its determination to safeguard sovereignty. And it also tried to prevent external powers gaining undue influence. Having said that, Trump's comment also reflect a broader pattern in his foreign policy rhetoric. So we know that his interest in Greenland aligns with his focus on US strategic interests, and it sometimes in a ways that disregard diplomatic norms. Because for example, in the last 3-4 weeks just after winning election, his comments about Canada, Panama as well as India, they have created a chaos in the markets for a short term. And one of his key statement and proposals about military action in Mexico, it suggests a willingness to disrupt any traditional relationship to prioritize perceived American gains. So in summary, yes, Greenland sparked such a controversy, but this controversy stems from a mix of rhetorical sensitivities, and then we have a geopolitical realities and the unconventional nature of Trump's approach.
Alright, so I see that Greenland's autonomy under Denmark has been a topic of significant discussion, especially when it comes to resource exploitation. So, Sandesh, how does this autonomy influence Greenland's approach to managing its natural resources?
Well, a great question, Shruti. But Greenland's autonomy under Denmark, it plays a pivotal role in how it manages its rich natural resources. So, if I have to give an example, and I know I am not a expert in law and the acts that government produce, but under the 2009 Greenland Self-Government Act, Greenland gained a substantial control over its international affairs, and it includes full authority over its natural resources. So this means decision about mining, then oil exploration and other resource related activities. It primarily made by Greenland's government rather than Denmark. So the level of self-governance has allowed Greenland to pursue its economic strategies. And with that, they strongly focus on resource exploitation as a means to achieve greater financial independence. So currently, if I have to say, Greenland receives an annual block grant from Denmark. But by leveraging its vast resources or reserves of mineral oils and gas, it aims to reduce this dependency over time. And that should be every country's objective actually. But however, this autonomy, it comes with challenges because currently there is ongoing debate within Greenland about how to balance economic development with environmental preservation. So some of the people see mining projects, those involve rare earth elements such as uranium. It may be vital for economic growth and even eventual independence. But then there are others deeply concerned about the environmental impact and the long-term sustainability of such projects. Another notable example is the Vannefield mining project. It sparked a significant public and political debate. The project supposed to be economic benefits, but then it also raised fears about environmental degradation. So as a result, Greenland government has taken steps to align resource exploitation with the values and priorities of its people, leaning towards the sustainable practices. So in a sense, Greenland's autonomy allows it to tailor its resource policies to its unique circumstances, but it should be a balancing act. Because using its autonomy to drive economic progress does not mean that it should not control or not take any action towards the development of environmental preservation. And while ensuring that it's a pristine Arctic environment and cultural heritage, and those supposed to be preserved for future generations.
So, what role do you see Greenland playing in the future of Arctic energy exploration?
Well, Greenland is set to play a transformative role in the future of Arctic energy exploration, but perhaps not the way many might expect, because in 2021 Greenland made a landmark decision to ban offshore oil and gas exploration. So this move, it was driven by environmental concerns and a strong commitment to addressing the climate crisis. But rather than focusing on fossil fuels, Greenland is redirecting its efforts towards renewable energy solutions, and that could reshape its role in the Arctic and global energy landscape. Greenland's greatest strength lies in its abundant hydropower resources. So the country already generates significant renewable energy from its glaciers and rivers, and it's now exploring how to use this surplus for green hydrogen production. So green hydrogen, as you know, it's a clean energy source and with the vast potential for decarbonizing industries like shipping and aviation. And by producing and exporting green hydrogen, Greenland could become a key player for sustainable energy to global markets. And beyond exports, Greenland is also looking at ways to attract energy intensive industries such as aluminium production, because they want to take advantage of its renewable energy. This strategy not only boosts local economy but also contributes to global efforts to reduce industrial carbon footprints. So while Greenland's role in the Arctic energy exploration is shifting away from traditional fossil fuels, but it's positioning itself as a leader in transitioning to clean energy. So this approach not only aligns with its environmental values but also sets a powerful example for how Arctic nations can balance economic development with sustainability.
Thanks for that explanation, Sandesh. It was really fascinating to know. And it's also inspiring to see Greenland taking such a forward-thinking approach to energy, especially in a region as sensitive as the Arctic. So, shifting gears to the Middle East, Iran's handling of gas contracts with Iraq and Turkmenistan have raised eyebrows. Can you shed some light on this?
Certainly, Shruti, we are truly shifting the gears now, because every time we are speaking about Iran and oil markets, this is the first time we will discuss about Iraq and Turkmenistan with Iran and about the gas contract. So let me tell you this. You know, Iran's handling of gas contracts with Iraq and Turkmenistan, it reflects a much more complex and delicate energy dynamic in the region. On the surface, it seems like a simple issue of contract violation, but when you dig deeper, it reveals a lot about the political, economic and strategic challenges that shape energy agreements in volatile regions like Middle East. So in the case of Iraq, Iran, they both have a gas contract with each other. But what Iran has done, it has been consuming gas that was supposed to be delivered to its neighbor, which is Iraq. So this is a direct breach of the terms of their agreement and has a significant implication for both the countries. For Iraq, it's particularly concerning because it's already heavily reliant on Iranian energy, and that includes electricity. So when Iran diverts gas intended for Iraq, it exacerbates Iraq's energy shortages and it contributes to ongoing power outages, and that have plagued the country for years now. And this situation exposes Iraq's vulnerabilities because it was not just in terms of energy security but also in terms of its ability to enforce energy contracts in a region where political stability often complicates such matters. But having said that, it is not just the issue about Iraq. So Iran's actions, they also highlight the precariousness of energy agreements in the broader context of regional geopolitics. Iran has been under heavy international sanctions for years, and those sanctions are from Western world, specifically America and Canada, and that has affected its ability to meet its domestic energy needs, and it is not able to fulfill its commitments to neighboring countries. So with limited resources and mounting pressure from both domestic and international sources, Iran may prioritize its own energy needs over contractual obligations, which is not wrong actually. But then that creates a situation where energy deals become less reliable and the risk associated with such contracts grow for all parties involved. Now, in addition to Iraq, Iran's gas dealing with Turkmenistan also underscores this instability. So Turkmenistan has been a key supplier of natural gas to Iran, but the relationship has been strained in recent years with the dispute over payment and deliveries. And these tensions between Iran and Turkmenistan, it illustrates how energy contracts in the region are often subject to whims of political negotiation and economic pressures. So let's say, for instance, Turkmenistan's decision to cut off gas supplies to Iran in 2016. It was largely driven by Iran's failure to settle its debt. The fallout from such dispute can have far-reaching consequences, which we have seen historically. And it was specifically when energy resources are already scarce and countries are heavily dependent on cross-border energy trade to meet its domestic demands. So this situation also raises questions about the broader stability of energy infrastructure in the Middle East. With many countries in the region, they relying on shared energy resources, and at the same time they have cross-border pipelines. So disruptions in the ones caused by Iran's actions can have a ripple effect throughout the region. So countries like Iran and Turkmenistan, they find themselves caught in the middle of complex web of geopolitical and economical interest, which makes it harder to maintain stable long-term energy agreements. So on a finishing note, I have to say this: Iran's action with Iraq and Turkmenistan reflect the fragility of energy agreements, and in politically unstable regions, it's a stark reminder of how energy dependency, political instability, and economic pressures can all intertwine, and making it incredibly difficult to ensure reliable energy supplies and enforce contracts. So for countries like Iraq, the situation not only underscores their vulnerabilities but also highlights the risk of relying on energy deals with the neighbors who may prioritize their own national interests over contractual agreements.
Alright then, what do you think would be the broader implications of such practices for regional energy security?
Well, the broader implication of practices like Iran's diversion of gas intended for Iraq are profound, and especially when we look at the long-term stability of regional energy security. First and foremost, it creates a significant trust deficit in the international energy agreements, because these agreements are with their neighbors, and countries that rely on cross-border energy trade like Iraq are forced to contend with the unpredictability of energy supplies, and And when a neighbor like Iran, which is both a key supplier and critical energy partner, breaches its contractual obligation, it shakes the very foundation of this agreement. And the trust is a cornerstone of international energy deals. When that trust is eroded, it makes it harder for countries to rely on each other for consistent energy supplies. And this trust deficit, it extends beyond just the immediate parties involved. And the other countries in the region and beyond, they start to question the reliability of energy agreements. So having said that, investor in energy companies and even other nations may begin to hesitate when entering into the new contracts, and knowing that political considerations and the domestic priorities can easily outweigh the contractual commitments. So overall, this uncertainty in energy supplies, it can have a cascading effect on the global energy market, or it may, especially when major oil and gas producers are involved. If I have to summarize, for Iraq, the impact is especially severe, and the country has been grappling with chronic energy shortages for years, and its reliance on Iranian gas to power to electricity grid, it's kind of a critical one. And when Iran diverts this gas, it exacerbates Iraq's already fragile energy infrastructure, and it leads to more frequent blackouts and power shortages, which not only Iraq but any other country also do not want for their own people and their own domestic usage. So this not only affects the daily life of people but also hampers the country's economic growth and development. And the energy sector is a fundamental pillar of Iraq's economy, and the disruptions in the energy supplies, it directly impact industrial production, commercial activity, and the overall stability of the country's economy. So in the face of these challenges, Iraq may be pushed to explore alternative energy suppliers, and it could involve seeking new partnership with other gas exporting countries in the region for or even further afield, such as Turkmenistan or Qatar. However, this comes with its own set of challenges. For one, securing alternative sources of energy can take time, and it's not always easy to find suppliers who can meet Iraq's growing energy demands. And additionally, the countries like Turkmenistan have their own political and economic considerations. They might have their own economic agenda or political agenda, and it can make energy deals difficult to navigate. So Iraq may also be forced to consider increasing its investment in domestic energy production, and this could mean ramping up its own natural gas production, investing in renewable energy sources like the solar and the wind, or it can modernize its aging energy infrastructure. And while these are the long-term solutions, they are crucial for Iraq to reduce its dependence on external energy supplies and enhance its energy security. However, building up a domestic kind of energy capacity is a complex process, and it requires substantial investment, technological expertise, and at the same time it also needs political stability. So these are the factors that Iraq has struggled with in recent years. That means after this Saddam Hussein era. So the broader regional impact is also significant. So when countries like Iraq face energy security, it does not just affect their internal stability, but it also has a ripple effects on neighboring countries and the region as a whole. So energy disruptions in Iraq could lead to, increased competition for resources and even higher energy prices, and even tensions between countries that rely on the same energy routes and infrastructure. So in the Middle East, where energy resources are already a point of geopolitical contention, this kind of disruption that can heighten existing tensions and create new conflicts over access to energy. So that's what I believe, that in future such kind of events, they can also lead to further geopolitical contentions, and they might start to disrupt further oil and gas supplies to the world.
Thanks, Sandesh. That was well explained. I would also like to mention this. Iraq can strengthen its position in energy negotiations by diversifying its energy sources, attracting international investment, and also building a more transparent legal and regulatory framework. Now, by reducing its reliance on external suppliers like Iran, Iraq can secure greater energy independence, as seen in recent efforts to capture flared gas and explore domestic natural gas production. So, engaging with international energy companies to boost production and infrastructure is key to enhancing energy security. And while strengthening legal frameworks will help ensure that contracts are honored, building trust with foreign investors. So, Sandesh, do you agree with this?
Yes, Shruti. And furthermore, I would like to mention this. The regional cooperation, such as working with neighboring countries on the shared energy projects, can foster mutual beneficial outcomes. We have already seen Iran and Qatar, they are working on the shared gas field, and there was no competition or there was no kind of a political agenda between them. But here, things are a bit different. So the situation in the Iraq, it highlights the significant role energy plays in the regional geopolitics, where energy dependence, they can lead to political vulnerabilities. And as seen with Iraq's reliance on Iranian gas, we can say that that is true for this particular moment. And the energy resources often serve as a tools for influence, with the countries using them to exert economic and political leverage over their neighbors. So strategic partnerships, those are necessary, and like those Iraq has pursued with Iran and international companies, it can solidify broader geopolitical alliances.